Loveless relationship. Warning: very long post ahead. I will try my very best to keep my thoughts in somewhat of an order. So, I have been in a relationship with my fiancée for around 7 years. We have 2 kids. I feel our relationship is out of the ordinary and basically platonic, bordering somewhere between brother and sister and old married couple at this point, and honestly has been for longer than it hasn't. Backstory: when we met, I was working as an escort and we were both in active addiction. I think we were both lonely. I latched onto the idea of having a consistent friend, as I was used to constantly traveling the country and meeting people for an hour at a time never to see them again. I think he felt like he saw something more in me than just my line of work. Maybe a bit of a savior complex? Or at least he felt the need to look out for me in a sense. We spent a lot of time together every day. I guess I started to feel like we were something of an item. We were having sex and spending most of our time with each other. A couple of months in, I ended up pregnant. I went to Planned Parenthood as soon as I found out. Turns out I was around 17 weeks along. My drug of choice was meth. I couldn't even remember the last time I had a period, and it was not at all obvious physically that I was pregnant. I was emaciated, surviving off of Haribo gummy bears and yellow Red Bulls. I decided an abortion was the right thing to do. I couldn't fathom the harm I had probably already caused that fetus. I was fully confident in my decision, but it was still extremely traumatic for me because I was so far along. It was a 2-day process, painful and just so sad. I had been staying in hotel rooms prior to the abortion, but stayed at his house with him during and after. Over time I stopped working, and lived with him full time. Our days basically revolved around picking up drugs/using them, hanging out, nothing really. At this point I'm not making money, I'm relying on him for everything. We had different drugs of choice, so my needs always came last in that department. I was often left at home with nothing to get me through the day, no concrete answers from him as to when he would pick up or get home, and we fought a lot. But I was dependent on him, and also felt like we were in some sort of relationship. I found things on his computer and phone several times that to me felt like cheating, but he always made sure to reassure me that he was not my boyfriend and therefore was doing nothing wrong. I wanted to leave many times, but didn't really have anywhere to go, and of course he wanted me to stay. Anyways, about a year after the abortion, I found out I was pregnant again. This time I caught it much earlier, around 4 to 5 weeks. I knew in my heart I could not handle another abortion. We argued about this a lot. He really wanted me to terminate, for the same reasons as the first time. I went to Planned Parenthood an absolute wreck. I looked like a crazy person. They knew I didn't want to get an abortion. They had me talk to the doctor a lot. She assured me that if I were to stop using immediately, the baby would be completely fine. At that point my mind was made up. I had no plan, but I didn't care. I couldn't do it again. He basically had to accept his fate and come to terms with the fact that he was gonna be a dad. We were extremely toxic while using, but we've always both been pretty decent, kind, honest people, so being a deadbeat dad was never an option for him. I stopped using meth that same day. I slept for the better part of a week, and ate more food than I had in probably a year. He continued using, not in secret but not around me or in the house. A couple of months later he goes to rehab for 3 months or so, getting out about month before I was due. By some miracle we have been clean ever since. Things were going well for a while, playing house, living mostly normal vanilla lives. We did argue a lot as first-time parents, but I've heard that's normal. We're also basically getting to know each other outside of drugs, and of course changing as individuals now sober. At this point in time I begin feeling very drab about us. While I do feel incredibly lucky that the man I had a baby with is a stand-up guy, I also realize our relationship is lacking so much. It doesn't really feel like we love each other, but anytime I mention how much we're missing in this relationship, he makes it seem like it's just me who does not like him. He tells me he loves me, he provides for us, and is always talking about the future. So I'm going along with things, accepting our affection less, unromantic, but also mostly unproblematic, easygoing relationship. We get pregnant with our second after the one night I didn't check my app before having sex. He proposes a couple months into my pregnancy and I say yes because it feels like that's what I'm supposed to do. We've been engaged for almost 4 years with no plans to get married lol. We live an amazing life by all standards, nice house in Southern California, 2 cars, full fridge, extremely supportive family on both sides, money is not an issue. Our kids are the lights of our lives. But I am desperate to be in love, to feel desired, I crave emotional intimacy. I feel like I am not attracted to him emotionally, he's constantly joking around in an effort to keep the mood light, it's annoying and unfunny. We disagree on so many things as far as parenting styles, politics, and more. I can't imagine he thinks I'm the greatest thing on earth either, despite what he says. He must recognize the lack of connection as well, right? He works extremely hard, I am a stay-at-home mom. There is no point in getting a job, my pay would barely cover the cost of childcare. My family lives 2 states away and I would never take the kids away from him, he's a fantastic father. I feel so stuck in this basically loveless relationship. I hear so many stories of women who spend years and years unhappy and unfulfilled for the sake of their kids, and that's not what I want, but I don't think I have a choice. I have an amazing relationship with his mom and sisters, they really are my only friends, and I am so incredibly grateful for them. But they don't see things the way that I do, and I know I'd look like the bad guy if I ever expressed these thoughts to them. I don't know exactly what I'm hoping to get from writing this post, perhaps I just needed somewhere to put this all down. I'm open to hearing any and all thoughts. If you've made it this far, I thank you for reading about my sad relationship. Now for ComNet. Yup. And you are stuck because you can't just go off and get a spot and start your life. He's a good dad, I respect that. But there is no spark. That has lots to do with drug addiction too. Neither one know what ya wanted. It just happened. You need to sit him down and break this egg open. Cause if you don't, it could send you back to the dope. Does he make you feel unimportant compared to himself? Like his shit comes first and he makes the final call always? I'm so sorry for you. You must be feeling like you are in the twilight zone. Just stay clean, young lady. I'm fucking proud of you there. So many things could have sent you back out. Don't do it. Good on you. Reading your post made me see how much both of you have given to be good parents. I hope maybe you can get some therapy to see the good in yourself and him and why you are still together, and maybe just maybe fall in love with him. Good luck. Next story 2. My wife wants to adopt my son. We have been having some really serious fights, and I feel like I would be foolish to consider the idea. What can I do to protect my son the most? What are healthy boundaries for her as a stepmom? My wife and I have been together 6 years, and married for 3. We have been in each other's lives for almost the entirety of them. We went to prom together at high school. The relationship in the beginning didn't work out, and we split for some time but had kept in touch. We finally got back together, and then decided to marry. In the beginning, I had full custody of my son, 11M, and his bio mom wasn't around at all. We married, and then shortly afterward his bio mom decided she wanted back in his life. My wife was essentially his only mother for 3 years, and when our relationship started had no reason to assume that wouldn't be the case. When bio mom came back into his life, starting with visitation, things became completely nuts. There was what felt like constant conflict. When my wife got an opportunity for a really well-paying job in Atlanta, we decided to move. This, however, didn't help the situation. We have had a rocky past, but she decided to marry me despite the issues. When we got married, things started out pretty good. However, At this point, a whole slew of issues has occurred, including physical violence and verbal abuse. The verbal abuse has started happening in front of the kids as well. We are in counseling with a very good marriage counselor, but things still seem to be spiraling. We went back to Indiana to see my parents, and on the way, because I disciplined our son, she refused to get back in the car. I had to entertain our children while she sat at a gas station for 2 hours, even after I begged her to get back in the car. She then verbally accosted me, saying some really negative things, including about my autistic son who she expects to be able to adopt. I would absolutely classify it as abuse, both to myself and my son, as well as the other kids. I told her she was being a shit parent, and that is my piece. She said we should just divorce, and I said fine. We got to Indiana and things were still just bad. I tried to confront her with a book on BPD and she flipped out and asked for a divorce again in front of my mother and my autistic son. She walked into the rain and threw the book over the fence into a ditch. She decided to change all of our passwords on our bank accounts, a STR that I help manage as able, moved money, everything. I didn't find out until she lost her phone the next day, and we were unable to access our bank accounts, the STR site we needed to communicate to guests, the codes to get into our house as they were electronic and changed as well. It was bad. I had to make an important call when we stopped at a restaurant while working on the STR, and because it took too long while she waited with the kids, she just got up and left with the only card that we could use that we knew had money. I worried if she was going to come back so I could pay. The next day, she decided she wanted to take our youngest, 10 Mos F, to the doctor because of a running illness. I told her I would take her, and we got into an argument. She stormed out and I loaded her into the car. I told her she should take our son, 3M, to the doctor too as he was feeling ill as well. I went inside and prepared a bag for everyone with snacks and got our son ready. In the interim, she called the police and told them I was refusing to let her take our daughter to the hospital. She turned my phone off and hid it. She left with me having no way to contact her. When she came back, I got a hold of her phone in the car and was able to call Tay police to inform them of false allegations. Shortly after this, she told my mother that we are not supported and that we are leaving that day, well before we planned. My mother said fine, and she expects her gone when she said we would. I immediately apologized and they forgave me. She did not. We stayed at a pretty bad hotel and had to transfer a bunch of stuff we had no room for to take care of the STR. The house is in her name, and because she mentioned divorce I said she should do it. I went to sleep and at 12:45 a.m. she woke me up and called me a liar because I told her I was kicked out too, when they had already forgiven me and I just wanted to protect her feelings. She said she wanted a divorce and she was going to take the kids and I would never see them again. She said there are already police reports on me. Similar situations like this have continued and it has only been about a month since the situations I am describing. She yells when I spend time with my mother and said I can't borrow a car from them and can't stay at their house when I went back home for an important court date with my ex. She said she wasn't supported when I just went to visit my mom. Now, because of court with my ex, if things go my way and she loses parenting rights, she wants me to let her adopt our son that I had outside of our marriage. I feel like that would be nuts, as she has already said she plans to just bounce and I never see the kids again. She disagrees. She says I expect too much of her as a stepmom, and I say that she married me knowing I was all he had, and he considers her his mother and would be crushed if she continues to diminish the relationship and say she won't be his real mother if she can't adopt him. Now for ComNet. Divorce. This woman is unhinged. You need to start documenting her behavior so you can more easily disprove any claims she may make. If the police were informed it was a false report, was she confronted for calling in a false emergency? I'd assume there'd be documentation of a flay's call out of spite. You need to move money as well and start considering your assets before this whole thing starts. Talk with a professional, she's not getting full custody. You need to speak with an attorney who specializes in family law. Family law is one of those that quite often offer free or reduced fee clinics because they truly want to help people. If things are as you described, definitely do not legally bind your other child to her. If you want to not hurt her feelings when you tell her absolutely no, you can tell her that the current trend for the best psychologically for the child is to allow the child to wait until 16 or 18 to decide if they want to. An 11-year-old is old enough, they should definitely have a major say in something like that because it affects them. But 11 years old is also young enough that they are easier to manipulate, so the 11-year-old should never be asked in front of stepmom. And your kid should feel safe that stepmom will never find out what they said, good or bad, so there won't be any pressure for them to try to please her by giving in. Children do not full grasp adult mentality and they will think that their choices can fix or destroy things. Never make them feel that pressure. You need a quality attorney ASAP. Thank you everyone for helping me wrap my head around this. I really feel insane often. I was medically discharged from the Navy and have worked really hard to heal, and she has been a huge part of that. I also have known her since sophomore year of high school, but we didn't get back together until 2017. We have lived through some serious trauma when we watched our daughter die in 2019, she was 7 days old. This is why I really feel like with counseling we can try and get through this, but she has gotten really, well, like I have said above, especially in this last year. I don't believe/like to think that this is one of those, she is an abusive spouse and will keep leading me on. I am absolutely not a saint myself. Again, I really appreciate everyone weighing in on this situation. I won't be able to comment much, as I don't want her finding out about this thread and getting really upset again. I just want to figure things out. To quote a licensed social worker, a wounded inner child will refuse to give up on a bad relationship's potential, so it is understandable why you keep trying to hold on. In the toxic family, we are told to be the better person, with someone who refuses to be a better person. If protecting yourself from emotional abuse is seen as selfish, then embrace being wholeheartedly and unapologetically 100% selfish. Be selfish for your kids because they don't have the ability to stand up to her. How bad it was won't hit home until you hear a safe person's reaction to your story. In the toxic family system, honesty is often weaponized. Let's stop giving ourselves away to the lowest bidder, but more importantly the damage she is doing psychologically to your kids will make healthy relationships harder for them for the rest of their lives. On YouTube you need to check out Patrick T. Honlicks and Dr. Ramani. Dr. Ramani has lots of advice for how you can deal with things, and she gives advice for how to handle court proceedings with people like your wife. And I gave you Patrick T. Han's name because you need to understand the effects that this relationship is having on your children. Both of them, if you want to help them, you will pay attention to what Patrick says. A gaslit child will become an adult who doesn't trust their own compass. We don't attract abusive people. We grew up without anyone being concerned or aware of our safety. By not putting a stop to her abuse of your children, you are subconsciously showing them that their safety is not a priority. Children who grow up in abuse will hide problems, abusers, needing help. Abused children can feel intense shame about being a member of a toxic family, when in reality, they are stuck in a system that they didn't get to choose. How you tried to be loved as a child is most likely your stuck place in the present. Having to wait for the safer parent to come home can greatly impact our relationships in adulthood. When a child is not the center of someone's world in a good enough way, then they will try to find a home with anyone who will take them, and that is part of how they keep ending up in abusive relationships. When children are not allowed to hate being abused, they will start to hate themselves. You can be abandoned every day and still be home every time she abuses him, mentally or physically. By not putting a stop to it, in the child's subconscious psyche they have been abandoned by you. My mom was abusive and my dad didn't stop it. I hold more resentment towards my dad than I do my mom, because he stood by and let a damaged person abuse us and didn't protect us. All three of us kids all are more understanding and have longer fuses with mom than with dad. Not on purpose, not to be mean to him. but the less safe parent is broken and for whatever reason doesn't control themselves, but the safer parent should have known that it was wrong for a child to have to go through this stuff, and the safer parent had the ability to step in and protect the children. The safe parent had the ability to leave, had the ability to reach out for help from family/friends/ many of the social services available, and knew that logically the kids should have been safer. You need to ask yourself now, how much do your children truly matter to you? Not trying to be mean or harsh, talk to psychologists. It is quite common for the safer parent to get just as much or more blame than the unsafe one.